Und damit herzlich willkommen zur Kreativ Lounge. Welcome to Kreativ Lounge from Berlin-Babelsberg. Today about the Internet of Things, regulations, privacy and all the data protection. Today we're talking about wearables, today we're talking about connected devices, trackers, light bulbs, connected light bulbs and all the things you can buy already with the Internet of Things. So the Internet of Things maybe in future doesn't have any screen, and I invited some experts next to me, and I want to introduce these experts to you. So next to me is sitting Barbara Halama. She's an early adopter, I can say, yeah, and a hardcore user of wearables and Internet of Things, and she's also, as a speaker, sometimes on stage and talking about the Internet of Things. Then we have Constanze Kurz from the Chaos Computer Club, maybe from the perspective of a little bit more responsible usage of data and data protection. Then we have Marek Tuschinski. He's doing workshops where people learn to protect the data. And then we have connected via Skype from Tel Aviv, we have Avi Ikovic, and he's a user interface designer, and he's focusing on how the internet will look like without any screen. So I think that's the round we have, the round table today. And yeah, maybe I'm just starting with Barbara. So Barbara, you told me that you're totally fascinated by wearables, by connected devices. You're going for hiking, you're doing mountain biking, you're wearing necklaces with LEDs, and so maybe you can tell me your perspective. Why are you totally into this?
Actually, so I'm a little bit older already, so I grew up without the internet and with all these really cool stuff around me. So when I go hiking or when I go cycling, it's really cool that I have an app. When I come home, I see which way did I go. Or last time I was organizing a conference, it was really cool to see how many steps I made just cleaning the barn, for example. I mean, in the end, all this data it's not really accurate. I assume we are in very, very early stages for this, but it's really nice to see how everything how it looks like. And also okay, I haven't done anything today. Oh shit, yeah, my status. Maybe I have to change it. And also to get a little bit more aware about what is your body doing and what makes your body feel good, yeah, actually. But I'm also very concerned, of course.
Yeah, what you're talking about is the quantify self movement, so when we totally track ourselves. Yes. And it's a little bit connected to the healthcare system as well. So you're talking about how many steps you did, maybe your heart pressure. There's wearables that track also this. And I recently saw a website called If This Then That, where you can control your trackers, that if you reached your goal, your daily goal of maybe 10,000 steps, then your connected light bulb will turn red in your living room.
It depends which device you use.
Yeah, so it's one ecosystem to the other. So Constanze, if you hear these scenarios, is there any red sign in your brain that says, okay, alarm, ring the alarm, or is it?
No, not really. I wouldn't consider myself part of the quantified self movement anyway. But I have a little bit of understanding for this, and I do have some of those gadgets, but I wouldn't have any idea to post it on the internet because I consider the data private. Yeah. And I have a little objection about the thinking to be body efficient, and the efficiencies thinking coming from a neoliberal thinking move to the quantified self, yeah, people. That is a little bit of concern I have.
You just said, okay, I don't want to post it on the internet. Is it really about posting? So is it like being posting everything on Facebook? Like, okay, I did 70,000 steps today, or I did I was cycling for 2 hours, or is it more like collecting this data for myself? And then
Well,
looking
yes, I do collect
yeah.
it for myself. I'm also a little bit interesting in those gadgets, maybe just to try them and to see what's possible today. But I am not a member of that Facebook marketing community, and I wouldn't. That wouldn't come to my mind.
Okay. So, Marek, if you see some scenarios with the Internet of Things, what really excited you if you see some scenarios?
Oh, that's a very surprise question.
Yeah.
I'm usually being asked the other type of questions, which is what's bad about it, what's wrong about it. I think there's a lot of amazing innovation that goes into designing different devices, but also a lot of misconceptions that are coming in. The story I usually bring in that is kind of interesting about innovation and technology is the development of first, flashing toilet, the one that we all use when you use water to flush the things somewhere. And when it was invented, the funny story is that it was invented without the infrastructure, so you could have them in a house and a few experimental houses, people were using them, but there was nowhere to send it. So it was going to the containers outside and then contaminated the air and everything, and etc. So you have the amazing invention at the beginning with no infrastructure, and then also without any legal infrastructure. So what you do, who is responsibility to remove it? Who is responsible for the fact that it causes diseases, etc. And with inventions, how much we can be fascinated by how flashy they are, they come with all the consequences, etc. And I'm much more interested about talking about the consequences, not about the front end. And by the end of the day, with this toilet, we're still using it, which is totally stupid. Right? You're using clean water to, I mean, what's the point?
Yeah, definitely.
And we are doing the same, in my opinion, with the data right now.
But isn't it also about having a more efficient system, using connected devices from different ecosystems to maybe save energy, when we can switch off the lights when our cell phone recognizes that we're not at home? So isn't it just the beginning?
Well, it may be and maybe not. I would look at, if you look at the ecosystem, you like to use this word ecosystem in the larger picture, is that how much to create this system, how much energy is required in the first place, if there's a balance. Is it not? I would like to have conversation about that. How much, minerals you have to extract from countries that have nothing else. Abusing the illegal systems and so forth to produce this system that would make you more efficient in how you maintain your electricity in a house.
So we are a little bit mean to Avi right now. So we just packed you in a thing. So there's a smart tablet hanging around from the ceiling, and you're connected on that device. And Avi, how do you feel from far away in Tel Aviv right now? Can you hear us quite good?
I can hear you barely, yes.
Okay, you can hear us barely, so I just try to speak up, and my question goes to you. So when you think about the Internet of Things, is there something really fascinating for you?
Is there something?
Really fascinating.
Well, I think everything about the Internet of Things is very fascinating for me. It's a new revolution, new technological revolution that we're experiencing now, and I'm a gadget freak first, so for me everything is fascinating. Yes.
What kind of gadgets do you use?
Well, I have the Fitbit, but recently I just purchased an alarm clock that monitors my sleep patterns. It has a button you put on your pillow, and then it goes through learning your sleep cycle. So if you set the alarm clock at 9:15, it looks at your sleep cycle, and if you're about to wake up at 9, if your sleep cycle is over at 9, it actually wakes you up at 9, 15 minutes earlier. So you wake up you wake up feeling fresh. So there's a lot of interesting excitement going on in the Internet of Things, for sure.
So we're a lot of talking about trackers and things connected to our healthcare system. So like trackers, fitness trackers. I just brought a device with me, like a blood pressure measurement tool that you can connect to a smartphone, and then you can measure your blood pressure each day. And as I saw, the blood pressure is not saved on my local device, but it's already saved to the cloud when I'm finishing my blood pressure measurement. So how do you feel with storing information about your fitness, about your health care, in somewhere in the cloud, on the internet, Avi?
Well, I guess it's a necessity of life. I mean, this is how these services work, and the business model of all these services is to give us a better service. We're becoming a cyborgs, and with these technologies, we extend our natural ability using technology. So we have to use these, services, and if we want to use, of course, we don't have to use it, but if we want to use them, that's the facts of life. I don't have any objections as long as it empowers me as a human being.
Yeah, I was just thinking about in the preparation of the show that when I first heard about the internet years ago, then it was a decision. So we can have internet at our home, we can have internet on our cell phones. But now I was curious about the Internet of Things. If we have the decision, if we want to have it, or if it will be everywhere around us. Constanze, what do you think? Do we have a choice to avoid it if we don't want to have the Internet of Things?
Sure. I mean, technology is just nothing that exists, but we form it. And if we take the example which you had, well, that data coming from those blood pressure or Fitbit devices or something, it doesn't belong to the healthcare system yet. So that is wrong, because our healthcare system is based on solidarity and not of the efficiency of an individual who's measuring him or herself. And that makes a great difference, because if you think of all the people and their personal, psychological, or medical data, then it's about the efficiency of the individual and not about the solidarity and the healthcare system anymore. So we have to take a little more caution when we upload it into the cloud. And there's, of course, the second side, and that is the commercial usage and the manipulation through marketing methods and that stuff. And I guess it's good to have those devices, but you should take a look at those gadgets that you have the control where the data goes and not be obliged to send them into the cloud if you don't want to.
So the healthcare system is one big trend, if you could talk about the Internet of Things, but the other one is mobility.
No, it's not healthcare system. The
It's not the
healthcare system is not connected to the devices.
Right, but isn't the healthcare system or the healthcare industry or the health industry not one of the biggest industries that will be affected from these Internet of Things devices?
Well, I don't hope so.
Okay.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
We have healthcare insurance system because everybody is paying into it. And so we have solidarity between all those patients or potential patients. And that would change if we could measure each and everybody. Because we have different different way of life, and some eating too much fat, some don't exercise, but that is, well, that's a private information, and I don't think we should care, and we share it, I mean, and we should take a look that is not happening and pressure us to upload our private medical data.
Mark, would you agree that we have the choice?
I agree with everybody here, but also I don't. I think with the health system, as you know very well from the research, health system and especially those that are digitized are the least secure. They have the lowest standards protecting data of patients and doctors and history of diseases and so forth. They are the most vulnerable. They run very old systems to maintain that data. So for me the problem is much more broader, because whenever data enters any system that is either a health system that you are fascinated about, it enters the public space of data, and the data is a commodity that can be, stored and sold into different places in different contexts. And the trick is not that the health system can use it against you to modify your behavior to make you more healthy, but it may be also a fad-making company to use it to promote some of their unhealthy products to you, because they know you're vulnerable. You have a tendency to watch this and that, or do this and whatever. It's a very complicated sphere. And what I would say for me, what is more important is how much of the data that we produce needs to go anywhere public. Maybe it's enough if the device tells you what's going on, and you can measure yourself without going around the cloud, which a cloud is basically 7,000 computers that consume a lot of power, and somebody owns them.
Yeah.
We don't have tools anymore. We have companies. Twitter or Fitbit is not the application. It's a company that is making money out of data.
And we don't know who will buy that company in the future and who will own that data in the future, right?
Well, of course not.
Yeah. Yeah. But is that the main problem?
No, for me, the biggest problem is actually there's actually a number of them, but the one that I'm interested in is the political notion of data. What it means for us to have any impact and influence over political decisions. If we give all the data away about us, our preferences, behaviors, etc., we're giving away also our autonomy, if you like. It can be manipulated, it can be appropriated, and it can be also taken away from us. And when you talk about any social culture or whatever problems, political problems you want to talk about, you need autonomy to be able to question authority. Either this is a corporation, company, government, etc. And this is why I'm looking at this new devices and Internet of Everything, because technology is neither good nor bad, but it's never neutral.
Okay.
It all depends on the context and who, when, and how is going to use it for, political purpose.
Yeah. We're already doing a really deep dive to regulations and what's possible and what should not be possible and what should be good or not be good with the example of the healthcare system. But there's another industry, and I think that's mobility. So if you see on roads, we see there's a speed limit sometimes, and the speed limit sometimes is controlled by the number of cars passing different streets or bridges. And this is completely done by the governmental infrastructure. But on the other hand, we have private systems like navigation systems from TomTom, and they're also collecting data from their SIM cards inside with a cell phone company like Vodafone, and they trying to anonymize data where they could try to calculate the traffic on the road. Right. And I think there's a competition between a private infrastructure like the navigation system, or Waze from Google, and also a governmental infrastructure where they try to calculate the speed limit on the Autobahn in Germany, for instance, where they tell you, okay, there's 80 kilometers per hour or 120. So if we see there's a bunch of devices collecting data, and there's companies trying to anonymize these data, what does it mean for the regulation?
Well, you're asking me the question because you're looking at me.
Yeah, I'm looking at you.
So it means many different things. So first of all, the problem starts where there's no human behind making the decision. So if you consider the fact that in many, Germany, for example, Western European countries, most of the speed tickets are being produced by a machine. There's not human looking at it. Basically, there's a photograph taken, speed taken, registration, and then that is looking at your address, send you a ticket. It's an algorithm. And that's kind of soft. But what if other decisions about your behavior will be also taken by algorithms, not humans? We don't have a legal system for taking algorithm accountable. Who, the programmer, the owner, somebody who bought the software? Who's going to be accountable for mistakes, for looking at it, and put it in a different context, etc. So it's becoming much more complex than we imagine. We imagine that it's like a very simple thing. And the other problem you address it's very interesting, because when you actually travel and you have the navigation system, you often would have the information from the navigation system that you're crossing the limit of 30 kilometers. Yeah. And it's there. And it can be solved as well. So it's known that you cross the speed. And it's not a secret. You're associated with your device, etc. So sooner or later, the same system that is helping you finding a way will issue tickets for you.
You're sure about that? It's the same system, or maybe the broker of the data?
Yes, but okay. As I'm saying, one can buy the other one, okay. And the history is there, so somebody knows that your behavior for the last 3 years is notorious, speed limit crossing and things like that.
Avi, you're a designer, and you're trying to define user experiences. And when we had a talk yesterday, you said to me that the internet is becoming more a kind of an experience, not having products. And we already talked about what kind of data are collected. Maybe you can give us a glimpse of your perspective. What kind of data are collected every day if we use all these new gadgets and devices, and what kind of stuff we could do with this data, maybe to motivate ourselves to do more things like being fit, or to do other things to be more efficient or energy efficient or whatever.
So I think that currently the notion of identity is becoming more. If you remember the movie Minority Report, where Tom Cruise walks into a shop and his retina is scanned, and all of a sudden they recognize him. They know who he is. They welcome him. This notion of understanding who the person is in all times is becoming more real today. And you don't need the retina scan. What all you need is a mobile phone in your pocket, or if you can identify people using a bracelet or wherever they go, you can really understand who the person is and what is he trying to do. So today, the Internet of Things is enabling us to create context-aware computing, meaning that everywhere you go, regardless of where you are, the experience will be different according to the context of use. So if you're at home, you could have one type of experience, and if you're driving, a different type of experience, and when you're walking into a shop, another experience. So all these companies collect the data from sensors, and I think as a user experience designer, the most interesting thing is to see how we take this sensor data and turn it into knowledge, turn it into contextual knowledge, so we can create better experiences for everyone using all these devices around us.
Could you just give us a point of view what a future day could be like? So growing up, getting up in the morning and then going to bed at night, what will be in the time between?
Well, there's already, there's so many examples, but I can give you an example of just something that I came across recently. It's a light bulb that is adaptive to your day-to-day. So when you wake up in the morning, it wakes you up very gently. The light goes up, and it's a white, bright light. You wake up, you're feeling fresh. And then as the day progresses, the light changes according to the time of day. So if at night you come home, the light is very, very, relaxed. The light temperature is very warm. And if you walk up at night, if you want to go to the bathroom, for example, at night, the light temperature is very, very mild. So you're not. So technology will accompany us wherever we go, and it's going to be transparent to us. This notion of ubiquitous computing, which is was first stated 20 years ago, is now becoming a reality where everywhere we go, technology is going to be transparent to us, but it's going to enhance our lives.
Do you agree, Constanze? It's enhancing our lives?
It is enhancing our lives, but the point that he made, speaking of the dystopia, it's not a utopia, and it's a dystopia in Matrix. It's becoming true in a way. I mean, we can talk about that Internet of Things, which means that we are surrounded by computers, and that will be robots too, and they will be following us because they are comforting us. We can't talk about this anymore without really discussing the commercial side and, of course, the Secret Services side. We talk about 1 year of Edward Snowden, so maybe the year in the future will be, at morning you get a hint from your, I don't know, foreign or your own Secret Service about your behavior yesterday, maybe, and then you get manipulated through all kinds of PR and marketing. So we don't live in that world where we could use all the data that is collected for everybody's well-being. But we live in a world where data is just money and power. And so I think we should take a step back and let's have some ideas about how we can use all those gadgets and really use the data for our purposes and not for any commercial instance, which just making money out of us. Because it's not about data, it's about our transactions and everyday communication which we do. And that I don't want to live in a society where I will be measured and my efficiency through the day will be compared with everybody. Because that is maybe not the utopia I'm dreaming of.
Yeah, but when I remember a couple of years ago, we had the first social networks. We had German social networks. We had international social networks. And I think the most successful social networks where they had the biggest social pressure and they had the biggest gamification.
Oh, no, that's not true. Think
Okay.
about Friendster and MySpace.
Yeah.
What was the point in that? First of all, it was not commercialized the way we have it now. But it were places where especially young people could experience and change it, and of course show and posing about themselves, you know. But that is not the way it is today. I mean, don't talk about social networks anymore. It's you know where they make their money from. It's a marketing platform, and you are the product.
Yeah. So it's as you told me, the data brokers. Facebook as a data broker, Google as a data broker, and that's maybe the role. So the farther we go into that discussion, I come back to the point: can we opt out of that? So can we avoid this?
Which is like, this is very funny. People always say that. Let's just go from one radical to another radical.
Yeah, sure.
Like, like from using everything and having like,
but it's controversial
experiences
discussion.
of amazing life into like, let's go back to caves. That's nonsense. That's nonsense.
Okay.
We have to live with it. I mean, we are surrounded by sensors right now, and many of them are not connected. When you boil water, there's a sensor that switches off, and it can be connected to internet. I don't know what for really, and it's gonna be more and more of it happening. And so even if you, as individual, will be able to run away from it because you interact with other people, they will, kind of create you. In the data sphere, without your consent, you'll be there anyway. So it's like that doesn't matter.
Yeah, Barbara, maybe we can have a look at your necklace right now. So
Sure.
it's shining blue right now.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it isn't not that connected yet. But the way the lights are on could be connected to your heartbeat, your heart pressure, the number of steps you did already, maybe the weather condition, maybe your relationship status as well, and things like that. So data of data, maybe like, and then it would collect location, the usage of things, where you've been, where you go, who you know, which you met, who you met right now, and it's not a necklace anymore. It's like a little spy or like a little tracking device. When do you get curious? So is this a dystopia I'm already talking about, or would it be the greatest device ever?
I think the use cases you just mentioned, this is dystopia for me.
Okay.
Because this is just a gadget, and it shows what technology is able, what we can do with our hands in the future. With, usually you go into a shop and you buy stuff, but nowadays you can put an Arduino on this, and then you can measure whatever sensor you get. There are tons of sensors out there, and it's not about status updates, or you can do really creative thing also with it. There are clothes where you can charge your phone, for example. We had this at the TOA, so company, with the fabric. It is collecting. It's collecting power and stuff like this. I think we should really think a little bit broader, and not only about this social network thing. I think we are going a step backward. This is what I totally agree on, and we look at all the things and we will use it in a way more intelligent way than the marketing guys are telling us now how we have to do it.
There's another aspect there, though, if I can.
Yeah, sure. The aspect.
Yes, the aspect is that I would make a difference between two kinds of devices. So there are devices that can augment our ability to see, to smell, to touch, to understand our internal body better, and it may be very useful, especially for those who are born without disabilities, etc. When you can wear or have implants inside your body that would help you with that. And I don't think anybody would have problem with this at all. I think the problem starts where you have the intermediary, where you have to send your data somewhere and then look at the data that is coming back to you, and you don't own it. There's somebody else there. And this is, for me, the aspect that is more problematic. The fact that we will improve technology and that can give us, you know, and so on, it's more or less, it should be regulated and so forth, because, you know, if you were wearing, or you probably still have your measurement of your heartbeat, etc. And if you were playing poker now, and I had the, you know, contact lens with a camera looking into Google and saying, oh, he's getting hot now, so I better keep my cards together and so on. That's a funny example, but you know, it's becoming more complex. Who is privileged to see things about others and who is not? And we're creating society that I'm not very happy about.
Yeah, but I see also devices that are completely harmless. So I was doing a little shopping tour. So maybe I can show you the pictures I've made. I was in a computer store these days in Berlin, and I just did a little shopping tour. What kind of devices you could buy already, and maybe I can ask for the pictures, Michael. Yeah, thanks. And I can show you some of these devices. I found something for going for fishing. I found something for doing tennis. This is a wireless fish finder. So if you do fishing, yeah, you can throw this thing in the water, and then it helps you go fishing.
Yeah, that should be fun.
Yeah, but actually you don't have internet outside of big cities. So I mean, this is I bought a mushroom app, and then I went into the forest.
Then you have every switch in your house, every socket you control via your telephone. So you can control the lights, you can control the stereo, your iron, whatever you want to control, and you can combine these two devices already. So what else did I found? A weather station, yeah. So you can measure the weather inside and outside of your house. Here we see the an urban weather station, also controlled by smartphones, and then you know these light bulbs. And I recently saw a little recipe on a website called If This Then That. If my favorite soccer team is having a goal somewhere in the world, maybe in Munich, then my light bulbs in Berlin can turn red. Same thing. If
How exciting!
Yeah, it's how exciting. So what a bullshit, yeah. But on the other hand, what does it mean? It means that I'm just sharing the information about my interests by my favorite sport team and my location with companies that weren't interested in that in the past. So, and the manufacturer of my light bulbs now know where I am, where I live, what kind of team I'm interested in. Maybe they have like social signals because everything is connected through my little Facebook Connect button. And I think maybe the product itself, independently focused on, is totally harmless, but in the combination of everything, the aggregation might be a totally different perspective. Abel, what do you think? So when you're designing products, when you're designing a screenless experience, what do you think about aggregation of data? Is that the thing that is really fun for designers, or is it like the biggest concern having also products where you say, okay, we need a privacy by default, privacy by design?
So if first of all, I want to say that if we make the default public, and anything that is private has an association of guilt to it, and it's wrong for me to say that I'm a big fan of having this data all around, and but as a user experience designer, it's these little data points that helps me create better experiences. So that's why I find it fun. But Ariel Balkan is a very big guy on privacy. He says that privacy is not about having something to hide. It's about the right to control what you want to share and what you want to keep for yourself. And I think that's really the core of what I feel here.
Okay, privacy by design. Privacy by design. So you said that's not something I want to hide, but that's the definition of what I want to share.
Because most people say, well, I don't have anything to hide. Yeah. Why do I care, right? Yeah. But if we make the default public, anything that is private has an association of guilt to it. So I think that we are conditioned these days to have all this data out there, and we tend to think that this is something that is okay because there's a notion of privacy as currency. We pay with our privacy and we get a service. So I'm not necessarily sure that that's, I mean, as long as it's fun and safe, but where's the future taking? Where, we can't, these companies, Facebook and Twitter and Google, their business model is monetizing on our data. And if we understand that, then we have to, we have to make sure that because for example, here's an example. A friend of mine was, if, for example, a friend of mine has a rash, a skin rash, and he goes to the doctor and he prescribes him a little medicine, like something to put on the rash. Then you go to Google and you search for that. Google knows what kind of condition you have. And all this data that they collect on you is not necessarily great. You don't really want Google to know what rash you have or something like that.
You're not forced to go to Google and type it in, right?
Yeah, so I can't hear, sorry.
I mean, you are not forced to type it in into the Google search machine.
Of course, but we want to do research, of course, and sometimes we want to see what we're getting. So sometimes privacy that is Can you hear me?
Yeah. We totally hear you.
So I'm saying that privacy sometimes is we take it for granted that we have privacy, but sometimes we don't even realize that we give out all these things to these companies. So as much as I'm enthusiastic about having these technology all around us, I think we have to be careful most times to see, we don't want in the future perhaps to create because all these little data points they collect on us, these data points mean nothing. But if they gather everything together, all these data points together, it's a gold mine for them because again, the business model is to monetize on our data. And they can do a lot of things with this. We receive a free service, but actually we pay with our privacy.
So I try to summarize this. So you're talking about transparency. So we need to know what we share, right? Then you talk about control, full control for ourselves to tell these companies what they are allowed to save and what we are will to share. What about encryption? What about anonymization? And what about sabotage? So we're talking about smart grids as well. So if we talk about devices that makes our homes more energy efficient, and we can control our heaters and our home appliance through cell phones, that might mean that not only we can control our home appliance via cell phones, but maybe someone else we don't want to control our home appliance. Who is allowed to control my vacuum cleaner robot?
Yes, I don't want my cat to control my vacuum cleaner. I think the other thing I would add to that, what you just said, which I think we were not discussing yet, because we're kind of focusing on the data that we produce intentionally. But the data that we either put the device on ourselves, or we search for something, so we put the term into the Google and so on. This is the kind of data that we generate, and we're kind of conscious of that, and we can make some decisions about it. But there's plenty of data, actually majority of data that we create is either called metadata or it's unintentional data, where our devices, they already speak to each other and they transfer information about our movements, behavior, position, time, location, etc. And they have to do that because otherwise they wouldn't be able to deliver the service. Like a mobile phone needs to be triangulated because otherwise you wouldn't get the strong signal. So for that, location has to be always determined 24/7, etc. And that's for me is more complicated, kind of the aspect of data, because as much as you talk about doing something, then it's about what you're doing or you're not doing. You may have some decisions. Yeah. Metadata is about where you're going, with whom.
But you already added a very interesting point to that, because you told me about devices connecting being to devices. So in the beginning of our discussion, we were talking about humans being connected to devices. So you having a connection to your necklace or to your step tracker or whatever. But now we're talking about devices having a connection to other devices, controlling each other itself by situations. So like a smart grid, like a situation smartness. Yeah, like since the weather condition is changing, my heater should react on its own. So there's no human between that. And what kind of security, what kind of encryption, what kind of regulation do we need for such things when devices are just talking to devices and there's no human in it anymore?
That's, I don't know, maybe somebody else wants to answer that, but because that's very complex, and again, it's not straightforward how you define it. You're kind of mixing two things. You know, one is the smart home. A smart home can exist without a human.
Right.
It is very smart. So the temperature will be right, the lighting will be right, or whatever else will be right, ready. But for whom? And when? And there's a totally different story. And then you can, you know, program different devices to create that. But we have different feelings as well. We have different moods. We change them very often, etc. So is the smart home the best? You know, maybe it's too smart. Maybe it's way too smart for us, etc.
Yeah,
but the other aspect of it is not actually the smartness or the smart of the grid, but where we are in it and what it does to us. Really, that's for me what is very important. And then who have access to it, right? Yeah. And you mean yes, I mean.
Yeah, but I think it's really about the infrastructure. So I recently had a discussion with a car manufacturer about how the city life will change if we have self-driving cars. And the discussion was about our streets, because in a small street, in a small city, or in a complex city like Nuremberg, with all these old houses, there won't be any self-driving cars within the next 15 years. That was the opinion. But on the autobahn, on the freeway, it's very easy to have self-driving cars. And what they were thinking about is like there are cities in the world that are just being established right now. And if you see these business campuses in the US, where you see the first self-driving cars, the infrastructure is built for the Internet of Things devices like self-driving cars. So maybe we will see completely new infrastructure that's just built for devices connecting, being connected to other devices. Won't you agree or not?
Agree on what?
That we'll
yes,
have a completely
yes.
different infrastructure in the future.
Probably. I mean, I don't want to be futuristic, because you know we've heard people 10 years ago talking about the future of networks and stuff, and they were all wrong massively. And people who were not appreciated for the word they were thinking were, people were thinking they were lunatics, and I don't want to be neither.
Okay.
So I don't want to talk about the future. I mean, but other aspects of that is the, like politics of this data is that the majority of this data goes to only a very small number of companies, and also to a number of secret services or others who actually have means, resources, coding power, and infrastructure to maintain that data, analyze it, and do something with it. And they have to pay bills, right? They have to hire these people. They have high salaries, etc. And for me, that's interesting aspect of that. Not the futuristic, infrastructure here and there, etc. But how much country X, Y knows about 27 other countries' citizens, and how is that possible that they know more than the government of this country or citizens about their behavior, their desires, their problems, and how they form their politics, etc. Those are, for me, discussions that we should be having, not just the ones, futuristic ones, about what will be our experience then. Probably
yeah,
be
but I think the future is near to come. Maybe not the utopia I was talking about with self-driving cars in every German city, but I don't know, Barbara, how do you see the future? You're an early adopter, and you told yourself an early adopter. What do you see in the next few years when we see? So do you see also a world of connecting devices being completely independent on their own and not any human between them?
No, not at all. There will always be a human touch in between. I don't believe in this future that machines will regulate us all. I mean, we're all going to die anyway, but it's a different topic. So we have to learn to work with these devices and all with this data and all to work with it in an intelligent way. We are each of us is different. So there are people who, let's stay at the activity trackers, for example. There are people, they don't move at all, but they are super healthy. There are people, they do extreme sport, and so they have to go to the hospital, and the insurance bill is really high. So how you will never get you will never come to do this with an algorithm, and this.
But there will be a lot of things which only algorithms can do. I mean, where you are the disturbing factor as a human. Let's take the autonomous cars again. We talked about the riding and driving and speeding. So we won't have any tickets anymore because autonomous cars never go faster than they are supposed to. And if we have, let's say, 20% autonomous cars, human beings are not a problem. If we have 80%, the remaining 20% human beings are a problem. And if you want to have a safe ride sitting in that Internet of Things device, or you would call it, then you probably will or want to erase that 20% human beings because they are stressed, they are maybe tired, they make mistakes, and they can't possibly have all that sensor data really parsed in a sensible time. So the machines are, in a way, much better than we are in certain realms, and that's why I completely disagree. There will be a lot of autonomous Internet of Things thingies or machines on robots which will have to collect data around us.
And do you feel fine with this?
Of course, I think it will be a bright future, but my concern is, like in every information system, that the question is who has the control. And the sexiest thing about technology is that we can control them. So I don't want to be dominated anymore by any marketing boohoo. I want to have my own control about them. And that's how I like to gadgets being built. And that's why I would never get any gadgets or cars where I don't have at least the last decision.
Yeah, okay.
But for this, you really would need to understand the technique completely. I know a little bit of coding. I know a little bit how things are working, but many people don't know anything. And let's stay with the self-driving car, for example.
We have to ask Avi. Maybe he's the one who builds that. I mean,
so that everybody can understand,
right.
and everybody. Maybe this we should focus on this, that everybody can really opt out of this.
Yeah. Avi, did you hear us? We just put you literally in the driver's seat for being responsible for the future of self-driving cars and interfaces where Constanze has the last power and can take the last decision on her own. What do we do? So when do we have a full automation? And where is the human touch in this? So what can we control and what should be independent on technology?
Is the question to me?
Yeah, the question is totally to you, Avi.
Can you repeat it? It was very hard for me to hear.
Yeah, sure. So but we're just talking about what will be the controlling feature in the future. From the user perspective. So Constanze just mentioned that she wants to be the last person who can control a device and not the device itself.
I mean, before it's rolling over my neighbor's pet.
Yeah.
Right?
So what will be the user experience, and how can we make sure to have this ability in the future?
This ability? What ability?
The ability to control the technology on our own.
I'm sorry, technical difficulties. Like it's very hard
to ask the question a little bit easier. So talking about user experience and talking about user interfaces, how should they look in the future that we have full automation, and in the same way we have the ability to control something with a human touch or by ourselves?
I think that any technology that we use should always empower us and should not control us. It should make us feel like we're cyborgs, we're better human beings. We enhance our abilities with technology. So I think that in the future, the user experience would be, again, like I said, transparent to us. It will be, we will use technology, but we will not feel it. It will be around us. It will be ubiquitous. The only thing that I'm afraid of is when we forget to be humans. For example, there's a sensor device which is called Kobachi. It's a Wi-Fi plant sensor that gives your plant a voice. When you put it inside of a plant, it really tells you if it needs water. What happens if the battery runs out? Do we forget to water the plant? Does the flower die? Do we forget to be humans? And I really hope that we don't. We don't really let technology overpower our lives and make us forget to be to do the simplest things of life and put some water in a flower.
That reminds me to the first years of navigation systems where people were driving on the wrong side of the street because there was just the arrows pointing in the wrong direction of the navigation system. So how technology related are we in the future? So how easy will it be for us to recognize that something could go wrong with technology?
Well, as user experience designers, this is our job to create a better mankind. I really feel that. I really feel that we should, plan for these scenarios and make sure that we don't. This little device is controlling our lives, and we're addicted to it. So, as a designer, I always feel that I have a responsibility to make sure that the experiences we create have an empowering position on people and not overtaking their lives or making them addicted or changing them. But it's actually a very hard thing to do.
So I think we're already not really closing this talk, but I have one last point I would like to add. So we're talking about companies like you mentioned Facebook, you mentioned Google, we mentioned Fitbit, and all these companies are located somewhere in the world, and they're storing their data somewhere in the world. But all the data regulations are done on a country-based side, like the EU or German laws or whatever. And you were talking about a ecosystem which is just good for us, and maybe privacy by default things. But how can we ensure that we have the legal things done till the technology arrives, when everything is done worldwide, when ecosystems or features are so brilliant, so motivating to use them, and we forget the legal stuff, we forget where they store the data, and what kind of aggregation could be there in the future.
Can I just speak on this geographical comment you made? Because it's kind of interesting. I recently visited California, and it was kind of fascinating because you drive through the city and you see all these logos, the actual buildings, which is amazing. They're not only on the screen, but actually there's like in the real world, etc. Majority of these companies are kind of paradoxically based in the place that is most vulnerable to earthquake, and it's living on this edge of tectonic plate and so on, which is for me like a very funny joke, because we trust these companies that are in the same place that can go bonkers in a few seconds if if Earth just blows it up, etc. Obviously, some others are in different places, but we trust a lot into systems that are behind our screens. And we often focus, even at this discussion here, at the front end, the device, how it manifests itself to us. But what I'm interested in is the legal system behind the system that is behind these devices. Who makes decisions about what and how is being monitored? Who can have access to that? Who else can buy it for how much? I think the other aspect you ask about, in the future, I think in the future privacy will be very expensive, and only few will be able to buy it.
Okay.
And we will create a totally different society defined by our behavior. The politics will be different, and I would like to see more discussions about that rather than the front-end devices, because there's a lot of inventors. Everybody's experimenting. If you go to California, it's like a gold rush. What is the next startup? Can we monitor this? Can you monitor that?
But isn't it always also the same discussion that we have? On the other hand, we have the discussion about privacy concerns. On the other hand, we have a discussion about too tough regulations blocking innovation. Avi, So from the perspective of a designer, from the perspective of a developer, maybe a business builder, so is the regulation sometimes too tough that it's blocking innovation?
I think that, I think if we regulate the government services, that's possible, and maybe it's fine. But what about the corporate services? The tools that they're offering us are an essential part of our life, and it's really hard to control that. So yeah, it's a very hard question to answer. Because we really want to use these services, but it's hard to find a place where we can regulate it. It's their business model.
But innovators used to be individuals who were, they were like outcasts, crazies that were trying different things, hobbyists, etc. What innovation you're talking about is only possible by those who buy all the rights, who can buy the patents and stop you from doing things, etc. And there's a different, context we're talking about.
Okay.
We less and less can actually innovate. What we're given is the device that we can use, and now innovation ends on how we can use this device or service. And what I would like to see is more regulations that would enable individuals to innovate within their own environment, rather than waiting for next big business or small business to come up with the killing app that would sort out our innovation. I think we should empower individuals, not corporations with all the regulations we're trying to bring to the fore.
I think Constanze would totally agree, right?
No.
No? Oh.
Not at all. Speaking of that regulation and that blocking innovation argument, which I heard for, 15 years, I consider it a lame excuse. Let's take a sharp look of what we are facing now. These large corporations, which don't come from all over the world, but mainly from the US, which have their own laws, and these are not European laws. And they have really large and effective lobbying stuff. You can look it up, how much money they spend in a year for those lobbying things. And looking at the regulations in Europe, you can see that they are successful. We talk about really large corporations who have power, and they don't want to lose it. Of course not. It's their revenue. Let's face it, we have laws here in Europe, but nobody cares anymore. Because most of the data Wild West we see is against our laws already. And we're talking about the future regulation, which is on EU level. But in fact, we should talk about that a lot of companies don't really accept the rule of law as it now on a European and national scale. So for me, it's actually a lame excuse to speak about it that way, because it's not about future laws. We have that problem already.
I really try to do a little summary right now.
Because we are surprised, huh?
Yeah, I can't do the summary right now. So because we can watch the show over and over again. I think we reached our 60 minutes of time, but we can open the discussion as well in the YouTube comments. We can open up the discussion on our hashtag Kreativ Lounge. And I was just recognizing that we're not talking about only devices being connected to humans. We're also talking about devices completely independent, and we have the situation that there are big companies working as data brokers in the future, and maybe there's innovation coming from a regulation that is facing these big companies not to store everything. Maybe that's the summary. Let's open the discussion on the comments. I really love to see this video being blocked by you and you and you, and adding your points, adding your 5 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Avi guckt lustig.